مشاهدينا في كل مكان، احنا معاكم النهارده هنستكمل حوارنا مع القائم باعمال سفاره دوله المكسيك لدى جمهوريه مصر العربيه وهو السيد هيكتور اورتيجا. في لقاء اليوم هنتحدث عن تاريخ العلاقات المصريه المكسيكيه وايضا عن حجم التبادل التجاري والاستثمارات بين الدولتين. فابقوا معنا وتابعونا. مشاهدينا في كل مكان، احنا معاكم النهارده هنستكمل حوارنا مع القائم باعمال سفاره المكسيك لدى جمهوريه مصر العربيه السيد هيكتور اورتيجا. Your Excellency, please allow me to thank you so much for having us for the second time.
Dear Sarah, it's always a pleasure to have you and your viewers again in the House of Mexico in Egypt, now to talk about the relationship between Mexico and your beautiful country.
Of course, Your Excellency, we would like to start about talking about the history of the relations between Egypt and Mexico. When did it start?
It started a long time ago. We're very proud to say that Egypt is the first country in Africa and the Middle East which Mexico started relationships. We had a consulate in Alexandria at the beginning of the past century. Alexandria, as you know, was a very important city for commerce and trade and for the Suez Canal. So Mexico decided to open a consulate around 1905. Then we established bilateral relationships with Egypt in 1958. So this year we commemorate 68 years of bilateral relationships. After 1958, 4 years later, in 1962, we sent our first ambassador from Mexico to Egypt, because Egypt also sent your first ambassador from Egypt to Mexico. And since then, all of the ambassadors in Mexico have lived in this house, in this villa in Madi, where we're very proud to have you all today here. The bilateral relationship between Mexico and Egypt, we can divide it in different components. We have political activities, we have cultural activities, economic activities, and if you want, we can develop each one of them. Egypt and Mexico, what I say is every kid in the world has heard about Egypt and Mexico. Every Egyptian kid has heard about Mexico, maybe because of the Aztecs, because of the pyramids, and Mexican kids have heard about Egypt because of the pyramids, the pharaohs, the Nile, and your beautiful history. So that's one thing that connects us. And for us, we're very proud that we're one of the embassies in Cairo that organizes the most cultural events. Why? Because, as we have talked, Mexico has a vast culture, and we like to share it with the Egyptians. So here in Egypt, we organize translation of Mexican literature, we organize cinema evenings, we organize photographic exhibitions, we organized, as I mentioned in our latest talk, a handicraft exhibition that will be presented in the last part of this year at the Opera. We're going to present a very important textile exhibition also. We also have a very famous Egyptian photographer that went to Mexico to take beautiful pictures, and we're going to show them here. So as we can see, the cultural activities that we make in Egypt are very varied for different publics. One thing that is very important is that, and that I have been amazed, a lot of people speak Spanish in Egypt. We now know that there are 25 faculties that teach Spanish in Egypt. That makes that between 15 and 18,000 Egyptians are learning Spanish. And as you may know, Mexico is a country in the world that has the most speaking Spanish population. Mm-hmm. So for us, it's very important for those 15 to 18,000 students that are studying Spanish every year to be connected to our culture, because that will bring our countries together.
Yes, for sure, in the future. Your Excellency, what about the volume of trading between Egypt and Mexico, with this long history of relations?
The volume of trading, it's not as big as it should be. I have to be very honest. The volume of our trade, it's around $150, $180 million, depending the year. Why I say it's not enough, because we both countries, we trade a lot. But maybe Mexico has been more focused on our closer markets like the United States, Canada, or even Latin America. And Egypt has been more concentrated in your region. But there are many, many products that we could exchange. And we're working with the Egyptian authorities and with the private sector to take more Egyptian products to Mexico and more Mexican products to Egypt, because there's a great possibility.
Some example of the things that you
For example, we're
in the future?
We're aiming on agricultural things. For example, in Egypt you cannot find Mexican avocado. We have said that Mexican avocados are delicious and we're the #1 exporting country in the world, but you cannot find them in Egypt. Or Egyptian mangoes. I'm in love with Egyptian mangoes, and we want to have them in Mexico. Your oranges, your lemons, your limes. We're working with the Egyptian authorities to try to bring them to Mexico, and also we're trying to bring Mexican meat and fish products and chicken to Egypt, because we know that Egypt imports a lot of food.
Does this mean there is a cooperation in the field of agriculture between the two countries?
Yes.
And what about agricultural researchers?
Yes, we are at this moment working with the Egyptian authorities in order to have the permits for these agricultural products to be exported. But also, we are almost ready to sign an agreement with the Egyptian authorities about investigation and investment in agriculture. For example, for both countries, water treatment is very important. So, for example, we want to do a South-South cooperation between our countries in those type of agriculture. I'm very amazed of how Egypt, a big part of your territory is desert, and you are able to grow amazing things. So that's one thing that Mexico also wants to learn, because mostly half of our territory is desert. Half of Mexico to the south is jungle and mountains, and from the north it's desert. So we want to learn how Egypt has been doing that.
That's great. Your Excellency, if we talk about the field of investment, is there any investment between Egypt and Mexico? And if there is already, how much or what is the volume of investment already? Investment
is very important between our countries. I can say that Mexico is the #1 Latin American country investing in Egypt. There are many Mexican companies in Egypt in different areas that are important for the Egyptian economy. For example, we have a cement company. The most important cement company in Egypt, they are here. We have water treatment companies that are working and building water treatment facilities in Egypt. We have also a company that produces plastic for industrial use, and they have a plant near Alexandria. We also have a very big company of Mexico that is present all over the world that provides services for children, for them to go there and have fun. And we also are glad that we have Egyptian investment in Mexico, at least in 2 very important sectors. One is oil, and 2, electricity. So you're working with the Mexican government to bring Egyptian investment in Mexico.
That's great. If we went back and talk about the cooperation fields, what about the health sector? Is there any cooperation in the health sector between Egypt and Mexico?
We have been having meetings with your health system, because they are very interesting in what Mexico has been doing in the past years. As you may know, the population of Egypt and Mexico, it's almost the same. In Mexico, we have 132 million people. So there are 2 similar populations. So the Egyptian authorities are interested in knowing how Mexico provides mostly public health to our citizens. So we're working on that. That's something that could be provided.
Health insurance or the
health insurance and health services, free services to Mexican population, how we provide it. Where do we put hospitals, what type of hospitals, and how do we manage the system when people get sick and go to a hospital, and how you manage them from the beginning that they arrive to they get a treatment.
مع ذلك يحمل كل لون معنى ويربط الأحياء بالأجداد والقصص الأقدم من الطرق. تعمل أكشاك الطعام بلا توقف، لأن مشاركة وجبة الطعام جزء من الطقوس وليست مجرد وسيلة لإطعام الجميع. يتعلم الأطفال التقاليد من خلال مشاهدة الأيدي، وهي تعمل، ويمكنك أن ترى الثقافة تنتقل إلى الأمام في الوقت الحقيقي دون أي درس. يتحرك الراقصون في أنماط تبدو مبهجة ظاهرياً، لكنها تبدو أعمق عندما تدرك أنهم يعيدون التاريخ من خلال الحركة. حتى أصغر فرقة موسيقية في الشارع يمكنها إيقاف حركة المرور، لأن الاحتفال جماعي والمدينة توافق على اتباع الصوت. المفارقة تكمن في أن هذه المهرجانات لا تقتصر على السعادة فقط، لأنها تمنح الحزن والأمل والمعاناة مساحة للتعبير. في المكسيك لا يعتبر الطعام مجرد وقود، لأن كل طبق يحمل في طياته جغرافية وتاريخاً وأسلوب حياة. قد تبدو التاكو بسيطة للوهلة الأولى، لكن كل منطقة تصنعها بشكل مختلف، حيث تغير التورتيلا والحشوات والصلصات مثل التوقيعات المحلية.
And what about the field of education and the scholarships?
Well, education is a field that there's a vast opportunity for cooperation. As I mentioned, we have identified 25 faculties that where Egyptian students learn Spanish. And for us, that's very important. Why? Because we can offer to those students scholarships in Mexico. Mexico offers scholarships for higher education. And these students, they already know Spanish, so they could go and study in Mexico. Another thing that we're working is we're trying to approach Egyptian universities with Mexican universities to try to make exchange programs. Mm-hmm. And we in the embassy, we have a program where we visit every single faculty where Spanish is taught. And we present them about Mexico, the culture of Mexico, the bilateral relation. And that brings us together, and we try to talk about with the directors and the presidents of the universities to bring and foster cooperation and scholarships.
Your Excellency, Egypt, both Egypt and Mexico are tourist destination, famous tourist destinations. So is there any cooperation in the field of tourism?
Right now there is no cooperation on the field of tourism, but we're working on it. Why? Because as you mentioned, we're both touristic destinations. We're trying to work to have a direct flight from Mexico to Egypt. It's not easy because we need more Egyptian tourists visiting Mexico. Every year we have 35,000 Mexicans visiting Egypt, but only 5,000 Egyptians visiting Mexico. We have to reach at least 50,000 people going one way and the other in order to have a direct flight. But the cooperation that we talked the last time we talked about it, about hospitality and how you treat tourists, that's one thing that we could work about it.
Is there any exchanging in the information or let's say the experience in the field of tourism, for example?
Well, not exactly in the field of tourism, but in the field of culture related to tourism. For example, Mexico has done a great work in marketing our handicrafts, our culture. And that's one thing that Egypt is interested in learning from Mexico. How we have market our products so tourists want to travel to Mexico, want to eat our food, want to buy our products. So that's a field that we can really cooperate on.
Your Excellency, if I asked you about your favorite tourist destination here in Egypt, and please can also tell us more about the places that you already visited here in Egypt and you like?
Well, I have to confess that this is my second time in Egypt. It's the first time that I live in Egypt, but I visited Egypt when I was 12 years old. So imagine me, a 12-year-old, visiting Egypt. I was amazed by it, and that's why I wanted to come back and live in your country. And now that I'm living here, I can tell you that I have visited almost every single place. I have been all the way from Siwa to the Sinai, from Alexandria all the way to Abu Simbel. You have amazing places, and that's why you receive 15 million tourists every year to see your temples, your beaches, the pyramids. And I have been blessed to live in this country and to really know it not only as a tourist but someone that lives here. I have to tell you that my favorite place is Marsalam, a place that is the beach. It's amazing. I think that in the world, people, when they think about Egypt and tourism, they think about the pyramids and the Nile and the temples. But they should come to Egypt because of the beaches that you have. They are simply amazing.
You like the beach from the top, or you like the diving and the life under the sea?
The two things, because that's one thing that Egypt offers.
ومع النزول جنوبا تعود الرطوبة بقوة وتتكاثف الغابات الاستوائية حتى يبدو الضوء نفسه وكأنه مرشح عبر طبقات من اللون الأخضر. عند الوصول إلى المحيط الهادئ غالبا ما يبدو الخط الساحلي وعرا وعاصفا، حيث تشكل المنحدرات والأمواج نوعاً أكثر وحشية من الجمال. وبالاتجاه نحو منطقة البحر الكاريبي يزداد لون الماء إشراقاً ويصبح الهواء أكثر لطفاً، مما يخلق شواطئ وبحيرات تبدو وكأنها من عالم الخيال. بسبب تغير الارتفاع وهطول الأمطار بسرعة كبيرة، يمكن لنفس البلد أن يزرع الصبار والذرة والبن والكاكاو في غضون أسبوع واحد من السفر. لا تبقى تلك الاختلافات الطبيعية على الخريطة، لأنها تمتد إلى الهندسة المعمارية والروتين اليومي وطريقة تحرك كل منطقة خلال اليوم. في المكسيك لا تعتبر الأسرة ركناً خاصاً من الحياة، لأنها غالباً ما تبدو وكأنها الهيكل الرئيسي الذي يحافظ على كل شيء قائماً. يمكنك ملاحظة ذلك في الطريقة التي تبدأ بها الصباحات معاً، بتناول الطعام المشترك ووضع الخطط المشتركة وإجراء محادثات صغيرة تحدد نبرة اليوم. يتنقل الأجداد والآباء والأطفال عبر نفس المساحات بسهولة، مما يحول المنازل والساحات والأرصفة إلى غرف معيشة ممتدة. حتى في الأحياء المزدحمة يخصص الناس وقتاً للاطمئنان على بعضهم البعض، لأن التواجد من أجل بعضهم البعض يعتبر مسؤولية يومية. إن الدفء الذي تشعر به عملي وليس شاعرياً، ويظهر في لفتات بسيطة مثل حجز مقعد أو حمل حقيبة أو تقديم التوجيهات. عندما يتحدث شخص ما بشكل مباشر، فغالباً ما يكون ذلك نابعاً من الاهتمام وليس من البعد، لأن الصدق جزء من الاحترام في العلاقات الوثيقة.
Talking about the Egyptian food or the Egyptian cuisine, for sure your Excellency tried it, so I would like to know your opinion and what is your favorite dish?
Well, Egyptian food is really good. And I have to confess that I have gained some weight here in Egypt because I have eaten everything that you create. But my favorite plate is koshari. It's simply amazing. And every single Mexican that visits Egypt, I tell them that they have to try koshari. It's a mix of different things, but when you put them together, it just tastes amazing. So I could eat koshari for the rest of my life every single day.
If I ask Your Excellency about your opinion about the opening of the great museum, Egyptian museum, what can you say?
The GEM, the Great Egyptian Museum, it's world class. I'm really glad that Egypt has a museum like this one. I have been visiting it many times. And when you see it, to be at the biggest museum for just one civilization, you really see the power of the culture in Egypt. It's just amazing. I invite all the Mexican friends to travel to Egypt to visit it because it's simply world class. Egypt deserves something like that.
With this history of relation, was there any archaeological cooperation between Egypt and Mexico?
It's very important that you bring it up, Sarah, because there has been archaeological cooperation between Mexico and Egypt. As you know, Mexico, as Egypt, we have ancient civilizations. So we have a great history of doing archaeological sites. And we have cooperated with Egypt. I'm very proud to say that there's a Mexican archaeological mission that worked in Egypt for more than 20 years. They came every year to work in a tomb in Luxor, tomb TT39.
You're working now?
They stopped 1 year ago.
1 year.
They finished, they gave the tomb back to the Egyptian government, and they are waiting for the Egyptian government to tell them where to continue working. So that's another part of cooperation that Mexico and Egypt have done in our archaeology, two things that we're expert worldwide.
That's great, that's great. Your Excellency, at the end, I would like to thank you so much for all the information that you shared with us about Mexican and Egyptian relations, and also at the first episode about Mexican people and the country of Mexico. So please, thank you so much for all this time and all this information.
Dear Sarah, thank you very much. I thank you and your viewers for being interested in Mexico. It's always a pleasure for a Mexican diplomat to talk about what we do in your country and to talk about our Mexico. So I invite you to go to Mexico and all of our Egyptian friends to visit Mexico. Thank you very much, dear Sarah.
Thank you, sir. مشاهدينا في كل مكان، وبكده انتهى لقائنا مع القائم بأعمال السفارة المكسيكية لدى جمهورية مصر العربية السيد هيكتور أورتيجا. تحدثنا في لقاء اليوم عن تاريخ العلاقات المصرية المكسيكية، وأيضا تحدثنا عن حجم التبادل التجاري والاستثمارات سواء كانت في الفترة الحالية أو الاستثمارات المستقبلية، بالإضافة لكل الجوانب الخاصة بالتعاون سواء كان الزراعي أو الثقافي ما بين البلدين. بتمنى تكونوا استفدتوا معنا من هذا الكم من المعلومات، واشوفكم على خير في حلقة قادمة إن شاء الله. شكرا وإلى اللقاء.